The Galactic Council declared war on humanity, so we destroyed them all. But that was 3 years ago. Today, something much worse was coming for us. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of humanity's most advanced warship, watching as her sensors lit up like a deranged Christmas tree. 12 enormous signatures had just appeared at the edge of the solar system. Ships larger than anything the former council had ever built. "Admiral, those ships are not in our database," Lieutenant Torres reported, his voice strained. "The hull configuration is completely unknown. The energy signatures are off the charts." Sarah stared at the tactical display. During the war against the Council, humanity had catalogued every alien ship design, every weapon system, every tactical doctrine. These ships were something completely new, something that shouldn't exist. Distance to Earth. She asked, 4 hours. Are they maintaining their current speed? "Madam, 4 hours." The same time frame the Council had given humanity to surrender before their failed invasion 3 years ago. Sarah didn't believe in coincidences. "Get me President Brooks. Emergency channel." The hologram of President Helen Brooks materialized next to Sarah's command seat. The president looked older than she was, worn out by 3 years leading a galactic empire that humanity never asked for. "Sarah, please tell me this is a drill." "I wish it were, Madam President. 12 unidentified capital ships are heading toward Earth. They are not responding to any communications and are not in any of our databases." Brooks was silent for a moment. "They could be survivors of the Council fleets. Ships that escaped and regrouped." "No, ma'am, they are completely different, larger, more advanced, and they all appeared at the same time. Perfectly coordinated. This is not a revenge attack. This was planned long before the war against the Council began." As if rehearsed, Sarah's communications officer looked up from his station. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission. It's in perfect English." Sarah felt her stomach turn cold. Perfect English meant they weren't aliens, tripping over translation protocols. They were beings who understood humanity very, very well. "Put it on screen." The main screen flickered, then showed something that made Sarah's blood run cold. The figure on the screen was human. Tall, pale, in a uniform she didn't recognize, but definitely human. "Greetings, Admiral Chen," the figure said with a cold smile. "I am Commander Marcus Vale of the Exodus Fleet. We have been watching your small empire with great interest. 3 years ago, you conquered the known galaxy, quite impressive for such a young species." Sarah managed to find her voice. "Who are you? Where do you come from? Are we the forgotten children of humanity, Admiral, cast beyond the galactic rim 2 centuries ago for crimes our ancestors supposedly committed? We spent 200 years in the void, growing stronger, preparing for return." The pieces fell into place in Sarah's mind. The lost colonies, the deep space expeditions that vanished without a trace, the government files that remained classified even after the victory over the Council. Today, Commander Vale continued. "We reclaim what was taken from us. You have 4 hours to hand over control of all human territories. To the true heirs of Earth, if you refuse, we will remind you why our ancestors were feared enough to be exiled to the darkness between galaxies." The transmission ended. Sarah looked at the hologram of President Brooks. The president's face was pale as death. "Madam President," Sarah said carefully, "what the hell did we do 200 years ago?" The response arrived faster than Sarah expected. Within minutes, classified files began arriving at her command terminal, files so secret that they required presidential authorization just to access them. What she read made her stomach churn. The Promethean Purge, as the documents called it. 200 years ago, a faction of human colonists had developed technology that terrorized the Earth government. Weapons that could destroy stars. Genetic modifications that created humans that were stronger, faster, and smarter than base humanity. Artificial intelligence systems that could control entire fleets with a single thought. Earth had declared them too dangerous to exist. The colonial authority had branded them terrorists and traitors, but instead of destroying them, they gave them a choice. Exile beyond the galactic rim or total annihilation. They chose exile. "Admiral," Lieutenant Torres called, We're receiving reports from all over the galaxy. Similar fleets are appearing on all major human worlds at the same time, 12 ships per system, same formation, same schedule. Sarah's blood ran cold. How many systems? All of them. Madam, every human colony, every former council world, every military installation. We're looking at over 500 ships. 500 ships total. The council attacked with 300, and humanity barely managed to contain them in specific systems. This was a coordinated attack on the entire galactic civilization that humanity had built. What is the status of our fleets? Admiral Rodriguez is mobilizing the Third Fleet to Alpha Centauri. General Morrison has sent Battle Group 7 to defend the former council capital. But, Madame Torres paused. Our ships are scattered across 100 systems. Most of our forces are on peacekeeping or reconnaissance missions. We're not ready for a coordinated attack of this magnitude. President Brooks chimed in from her hologram. Sarah, I'm authorizing the Omega Protocol. Every human vessel, every defense platform, every system of weapons we built during the war against the Council. Activate everything. Yes, ma'am. But Madam President, what about our alien allies? The former Council species also have ships. Some of them are quite powerful. Brooks hesitated. That's complicated. We're receiving reports that several alien governments are declaring neutrality. They're saying this is an internal human conflict. Sarah felt her chest tighten. The carefully constructed alliances humanity had forged after the war against the Council crumbled at the first sign of a real threat. 3 years of cooperation meant nothing when survival was at stake. Ma'am. Some of them are doing more than staying neutral, Torres reported, his face pale. Intelligence is reporting that the Borak Collective has opened its borders to the Exodus fleet. They're allowing enemy ships to refuel at their stations. Torres, Sarah murmured. Can you blame them? President Brooks asked quietly. We conquered 3 years ago. They swore loyalty because they had no other choice. Now they see an opportunity for revenge. The tactical screen updated with new information. The ships of the Exodus fleet were not only approaching Earth, but were taking up positions all around the solar system, Mars, and Jupiter. The mining stations in the asteroid belt were moving to cut off all escape routes. Admiral, we're receiving another transmission, the communications officer announced. Commander Vale appeared on the screen again, but this time he wasn't there. Standing behind him were figures Sarah recognized from intelligence reports, former military leaders from the Council who had supposedly accepted human rule. Alien commanders who had sworn loyalty to the Terran Federation. Surprised, the Admiral asked. Vale, did you really think the species you conquered would remain loyal forever? We've been negotiating with your allies for 2 years, offering them something you could never give them. What? Sarah asked. Freedom from human control. A return to their independence. All they had to do was not interfere. When we returned home, Sarah watched as the screen showed the ships on Tari moving away from the human defensive positions. The Borak ships cut their weapons. The Krillian defense platforms went offline. Within minutes, humanity's numerical advantage was evaporating. You see, Admiral, we learned something during our 200 years of exile. The galaxy doesn't want human leadership. They tolerate it because they have no other choice. But if you give them an alternative, they'll abandon you as quickly as they surrender to you. The transmission continued. We offer the alien species something you never could. True independence without human overseers controlling their technological development, without human administrators governing their colonies, without human ships patrolling their space. Sarah realized with growing horror that the Exodus fleet had completely overrun humanity. This wasn't just a military attack, it was a political revolution designed to isolate humanity from all its allies. Your 3-year-old empire is crumbling. Admiral Chen. In 12 hours, humanity will stand alone against forces it cannot properly defeat. But then something unexpected happened. Admiral Rodriguez's voice crackled over the communication system from the Alpha Centauri defense fleet. Admiral Chen, this is Rodriguez. Attention. We are not alone. Terran Marines on Kepler Station report that their counterparts on Tari are refusing to abandon their posts. Several alien commanders are requesting permission to fight alongside our forces. Sarah felt a glimmer of hope. How many of us still don't know, but it seems that not all of our allies are. Some remember that. We kept our promises during integration, protected their civilians, respected their cultures, and gave them real positions in the new government. Commander Vale's confident expression faltered for a moment. A few idealists won't change the outcome. Perhaps he didn't answer. But you made a critical error in your planning, Commander. And what is that? You left 200 years ago. You don't know what humanity has become. We are no longer the same species that exiled you. We learned during the Council War that strength is not about domination, it's about earning loyalty. Confidently, Sarah cut the transmission and turned to her crew. All stations prepare for battle and get me. Every ship captain who is willing to fight with us, human or alien. It doesn't matter anymore. As alerts blared across the bridge, Sarah realized that this would not be like the Council War. That had been about conquest and submission. This would be about showing what kind of civilization humanity had truly built among the stars. What happened next changed everything. The first wave of ships from the Exodus fleet attacked simultaneously in 12 star systems, but these were not careful, precise attacks like the ones humanity had used against the Council. These were weapons of pure annihilation, Admiral, shouted Lieutenant Torres from his station. The Kepler colony 4642 simply vanished. Sarah's blood ran cold. Disappeared. What do you mean the entire planet disappeared, ma'am? They fired some kind of stellar manipulator. The star went supernova. 8 million people were vaporized in seconds. The bridge went silent except for the whir of computers processing the impossible. An entire world. 8 million human and alien colonists erased as if they had never existed. The hologram of President Brooks flickered with static. Sarah, we are receiving reports from all over the galaxy. They are not trying to conquer our worlds. Are being completely destroyed. Sarah looked at the tactical display as red marks appeared where human colonies had once stood. Vega Station, the mining worlds of the Centauri cluster, the research facilities in orbit of Proxima b. Each one represented millions of lives extinguished in moments. My God, she whispered. They're committing genocide. Commander Vale's face reappeared on the main display, and this time his expression held not a shred of mercy. Did you really think that we spent 200 years in exile learning patience, Admiral? We learned hatred. We learned that the galaxy is better off without the weakness you call civilization. You're murdering billions of innocent people. We're purging the galaxy of corruption. Your multicultural empire is an abomination. Humans working alongside the same aliens who threatened our species, sharing technology with creatures that would have enslaved us. This ends today. Sarah realized with horror that this wasn't about revenge, nor of conquest. The Exodus fleet planned to exterminate every living being in human space and start over with its own vision of racial purity. Torres, what is the status of our fleet? Admiral Rodriguez's fleet was destroyed defending Alpha Centauri. General Morrison's battle group lasted 18 minutes against the Exodus forces at the Council capital. We are losing on all fronts. Sarah felt the walls closing in on her. The Council War's technological advantages meant nothing against weapons that could destroy stars. The careful military preparations of 50 years were useless against an enemy ready to commit total genocide. Ma'am, we are receiving an emergency transmission from Earth Defense Command. General Key's face appeared on a secondary screen. Half of his uniform was burned, and blood was running down his face. Behind him, Sarah could see fires burning through the windows of what used to be the Pentagon. Admiral Chen, Earth is under direct attack. They are not targeting. Military installations are targeting cities. New York has disappeared. London too. Half of Asia is on fire. We have maybe 2 hours before they finish sterilizing the planet. Sarah's hands trembled as she gripped her command chair. Earth, humanity's homeworld. 14 billion people about to be wiped out by their own kind. General and the evacuation protocols. There wasn't time. Their ships appeared in low orbit. We couldn't even get the children out. Key's voice cracked. Sarah isn't just killing us, she's enjoying it. We intercept communications between their commanders. They're betting on which city will hold out the longest. President Brooks' hologram flickered gravely. Now, because of the interference from the orbital bombardment, Sarah authorized the use of the Omega arsenal. Every experimental weapon we developed during the Council War but never used. Sarah felt her chest tighten. The Omega arsenal. Weapons so devastating that humanity had agreed never to use them, not even against the Council. Planet-breaking, reality-altering bombs. Devices capable of undoing the very fabric of space-time. Madam President, if we use those weapons, we'll destroy ourselves along with them. I know, but Sarah, they're already destroying us. At least this way, we're taking them with us. The authorization codes arrived at Sarah's terminal. Weapons capable of opening stars, collapsing dimensional barriers, or rewriting the laws of physics in local space. Using any of them would probably mean killing everyone in the system, humans and aliens alike. But then Lieutenant Torres looked up from his station with an expression of hope. Desperate. The Admiral detected enormous energy signatures entering the outer system. Unknown vessels. But, ma'am, they're not attacking us. They're attacking the fleet. Exodus. Sarah's heart pounded as new ships appeared on the tactical display. Ships with designs she recognized. Heavy cruisers on Tari, Borax battle platforms, Krillian destroyers, but flying in formation with human vessels she'd never seen before. Admiral Chen, speaking, Captain Maria Santos of the Deep Space Exploration Fleet. We've been operating beyond the galactic rim for 5 years. When we detected the Exodus fleet approaching human space, we contacted all species that had treaties with the Terran Federation. Santos' voice rang out with unwavering determination. Madam, it turns out not everyone wants to see the galaxy burn to the ground. There are 47 different species here, including some the Exodus fleet thought they'd recruited. Turns out genocide isn't as popular as they thought. Sarah watched the display as hundreds of Allied ships engaged the Exodus fleet around Earth. For the first time in hours, humans and aliens were fighting together. Instead of dying separately, but even as hope ignited in her chest, Sarah knew this was only the beginning. The true battle was about to begin. The battle for Earth began with the largest space engagement in galactic history. Admiral Sarah Chen watched as 800 Allied ships exited hyperspace around the Sol system, facing the 500 ships of the Exodus fleet. But these were not the careful, strategic battles of the Council War. This was pure chaos on a scale that defied all understanding. To all ships, this is Admiral Chen. She broadcast on all frequencies. Today we are not fighting for territory or politics. We are fighting for the right of every species in this galaxy to exist. Make them pay. The first exchange of fire lit up space like a second sun. The Exodus ships unleashed their stellar manipulators, weapons capable of igniting planets and collapsing stars. But Captain Santos's space exploration fleet had brought something unexpected. Gravity bombs that could redirect energy access against their own sources. A direct hit on the Exodus flagship, the Nemesis, Lieutenant Torres shouted from his station. His star gun reversed against its own hull, but the Exodus fleet quickly adapted. Commander Vale's voice crossed the comms channels, cold and calculating. All units concentrate fire on the alien vessels first. Show these scum, Sheno, what happens when they interfere with human destiny. Sarah watched in horror as 3 Centauri cruisers exploded under concentrated fire. These were not simple battles, they were executions. The Exodus ships moved with inhuman precision, targeting Allied vessels with weapons designed to cause maximum suffering before death. Admiral, this is Captain Tex of the Centauri 3rd Fleet. A voice came over the comms, translated from the alien language. My ships are suffering heavy casualties, but no, we will abandon our human allies. Your species showed us honor during integration. We remember. Sarah felt tears well up in her eyes. After 3 years of careful diplomacy and mutual respect, these alien commanders were choosing to die alongside humanity rather than flee to safety. But the Exodus fleet wasn't just fighting in space. On Earth, landing craft were landing in the ruins of major cities. Sarah watched the tactical transmissions as the Exodus ground forces began a systematic hunt for survivors. "Ma'am, we're receiving reports from the surface," Torres said, his voice strained. "The enemy forces are taking no prisoners. They are executing civilians on the spot, children, and elderly people. Find them." Sarah clenched her fists. These weren't soldiers fighting a war. They were exterminators committing genocide. "Admiral speaking. Colonel Rodriguez from New Geneva." A transmission came in from the surface. "We have approximately 200,000 civilians trapped in underground shelters. Enemy forces are preparing to breach our defenses. We need immediate support." Sarah looked at the space battle raging around her. Every ship was engaged in desperate fighting. There were no reserves to send to the surface. But then Captain Santos' voice came over the comm. "Admiral Chen, I have 12 ships that can break away from the main combat. Volunteer crews only. This is a mission of no return. To the surface, Santos. Your ships are not designed for atmospheric combat." "No, ma'am, but they are designed for ramming speed." Sarah understood immediately. Santos planned to crash his ships directly into the Exodus ground forces. Kamika attacks to buy time to evacuate. "To the Saints, civilians, don't you have to do this?" "Yes, Admiral. Yes, we have to. For this, we returned." Sarah watched as 12 human ships broke formation and hurtled toward Earth's atmosphere, their hulls glowing red-hot as they entered combat speed. On the surface, the Exodus forces scattered as the burning ships crashed into their formations like meteorites from hell. The sacrifice bought precious time, but the space battle was still going badly. The Exodus fleet's numerical advantage was evident, and their weapons were too advanced for conventional tactics. Meanwhile, in the Proxima Centauri system, Admiral Rodriguez waged a desperate holding action against another Exodus force. His depleted fleet of 47 ships faced more than 60 enemy ships equipped with time warp weapons that could age entire ships to scrap in minutes. "Admiral Chen speaks Rodriguez." His voice crackled through from the quantum communicator. "We're suffering heavy losses. Do they have some kind of chronological warfare technology here? The heavy cruiser Manchester just aged 500 years in 30 seconds and disintegrated." Sarah divided her attention between the battle on Earth and the reports coming in from all corners of human space. On Alpha Centauri, the mining colonies were being bombarded by Exodus ships using dark matter cannons. In the Vega system, the research stations were being systematically destroyed by weapons that broke molecular bonds at the quantum level. "Torres, what's our casualty report?" "We've lost 60% of the Allied fleet around Earth, Admiral. Similar losses are being reported in all other systems. The enemy's weapons are like nothing we've ever faced." But then something extraordinary happened. Captain Maria Santos, who was supposed to have died in their attack, kamikaze, appeared on the communication screen from Earth's surface. Her face was covered in blood and her uniform was torn, but she was still alive. "Admiral, we've made contact with Exodus defectors down here. Apparently, not all of them agree with the genocidal plan. We have about 200 Exodus soldiers who want to defect." Sarah looked at the screen in disbelief. "Deserters?" "Yes, ma'am. Led by a commander named Jessica Park. She says there's a resistance movement within the Exodus fleet. They've been sabotaging operations for months, waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves. This changed everything." Sarah immediately opened a secure channel with Commander Park. The woman who appeared on screen looked remarkably like Vale, but where he radiated cold hatred, she displayed desperate determination. "Admiral Chen, I represent the Exodus Liberation Front. We have been fighting Vale's extremist faction for decades. When we learned of the genocidal plan, we knew we had to act. How many ships do 47 control? Scattered within Vale's fleet. We can't attack openly without being destroyed, but we can create opportunities for their forces." Sarah's mind raced with possibilities. What kind of opportunities? Star manipulators require complex coordination between multiple ships. If we manage to disrupt that coordination at just the right moment, their most dangerous weapons become useless. As if their conversation had been a signal, enormous gravitational distortions appeared at the edge of the Sol system. Sarah watched in awe as a structure the size of a small moon materialized from hyperspace. Its hull was covered with markings from dozens of different species and was armed with technology that only existed in theoretical physics textbooks. "This is the Ark ship Unity," a transmission said in perfect English. "On behalf of the Refugee Coalition, we Galactics claim sanctuary rights for the Solantara system." She looked at the gigantic ship. "Who are you, Admiral Chen?" "We are the survivors of the previous genocides committed by the Exodus fleet. For 200 years, we have been gathering the remnants of the species they destroyed. We represent 43 civilizations that the Exodus fleet believed they had completely eliminated." The revelation hit Sarah like a physical shock. The Exodus fleet had not only been exiled from human space. They had been systematically destroying entire species for 2 centuries, strengthening their power while committing genocide on the galactic rim. "Today we side with humanity," the Ark ship's commander continued. "Not because we love your species, but because we understand that stopping the Exodus fleet here will prevent them from destroying many more." Commander Vale's voice cut through the communication channels, and for the first time, Sarah heard true fear in his tone. "Impossible. We eliminated them all. Every world. Every ship. Every trace of their pathetic civilizations. You wiped out our worlds, okay?" The Ark ship replied. "But survivors always find a way to reunite in the darkness. We've been waiting for this day for 2 centuries." The Ark ship, Unity, was not alone. Behind it came dozens of smaller ships, each representing a different species that had been driven to the brink of extinction but somehow survived in the void between galaxies. Sarah recognized some ship designs from ancient databases. The Trinidad, declared extinct 50 years ago. The Galactic Empire, supposedly destroyed by pirates decades ago, species that history had forgotten but had secretly been rebuilding their strength. What followed completely redefined Sarah's understanding of warfare. The Ark ship, Unity, unleashed weapons that operated under principles beyond conventional physics, devices that altered reality by turning the Exodus ships inside out, causing their hulls to turn into interiors in geometric configurations. Impossible temporal disruptors that aged enemy ships thousands of years in seconds, reducing them to clouds of debris. Floating dimensional cannons that simply obliterated their targets from existence, creating holes in space-time where ships once stood. But it wasn't just the advanced weapons that turned the tide of the battle. It was the coordination. Dozens of species that had been enemies for millennia worked together with perfect synchronization, united by their shared hatred of the Exodus fleet in ways Sarah had never imagined possible. The Trinidad ships moved like living creatures, their biomechanical hulls adapting to enemy fire and developing new weapons in real time. The galactic vessels engaged in perfect geometric formations that created overlapping protective energy fields. Species Sarah had never heard of deployed technologies that seemed to violate every law of physics she knew. Admiral Torres reported, his voice filled with awe. "The Exodus fleet, they're breaking formation. They're trying to retreat." But retreating was no longer an option. The refugee species had waited 200 years for this moment and weren't about to let their tormentors escape again. Sarah watched as the battle shifted from a desperate defense to a relentless pursuit. The Exodus ships trying to flee were caught in tractor beams manipulating gravitational waves. Others discovered that their hyperspace drives had been infected with quantum viruses that turned their own navigation systems into a death trap. Amid the chaos, the resistance ships led by Commander Park rebelled. 47 Exodus ships turned on their own fleet, aiming their weapons at the star manipulators and command ships. The surprise attack created openings that the Allied forces exploited mercilessly. "This is Admiral Chen to all ships," Sarah broadcast on all frequencies. "The enemy is defeated. Begin search and rescue operations for all survivors, regardless of species." But even when victory was evident, Sarah knew the real work was just beginning. The battle had revealed technologies and alliances that would reshape galactic civilization. The refugee species possessed knowledge lost for centuries. Deserters from the Exodus brought information about threats beyond the galactic rim. Cooperation between dozens of different species during the battle had created bonds that transcended old rivalries and fears. Admiral, a transmission arrived from the Ark ship Unity. We request permission to establish refugee settlements in Terran Federation space. Our people have wandered the void for generations. We are ready to return home. Sarah looked at the debris field surrounding Earth, then the hundreds of allied ships from dozens of different species. Permission granted. Welcome to the galaxy. But the most significant moment came when Admiral Tex of the Centauri fleet appeared on her screen. The alien commander's face was battle-scarred, but his eyes showed something Sarah had never seen before. Genuine respect among equals. Admiral Chen, the Centauri Council has voted unanimously. We no longer consider ourselves subjects of the Terran Federation. We consider ourselves equal partners in a new galactic alliance. Similar messages began to arrive from every allied species. The Borak Collective declared its independence while simultaneously requesting a mutual defense pact. The Krillian Confederation proposed joint research initiatives. Even the smallest species that participated in the battle began to discuss trade agreements and cultural exchanges. The final pursuit of Commander Vale's flagship took Sarah's force beyond the orbit of Pluto, toward the dark depths of interstellar space. The Nemesis was fast and well-armed, but alone against 50 allied vessels representing a dozen different species. Admiral Chen speaks to Commander Vale. Your fleet has been destroyed. Your genocide ends here. Surrender now and I guarantee you will face trial rather than execution. Vale's reply came through gritted teeth, his image distorted by interference from his damaged ship. Do you think they've won, Admiral? Do you think this changes anything? Aren't we the only Exodus fleet? There are others scattered across the galactic rim with weapons that make ours look primitive. We will never stop until we purge the galaxy of all weakness. Then you will die trying just like your followers. Sarah gave the order to fire. Her ship's main cannons, powered by technology from a dozen different species, tore the Nemesis apart like paper. But before the flagship died, Vale activated a weapon. A quantum destabilizer that would have destroyed every ship in the system. The weapon was never fired. Commander Park's ship, the Liberation, rammed the Nemesis at full speed. Its final sacrifice, saving hundreds of thousands of lives. Both ships died in a fireball that could be seen from Earth. But Vale's reign of terror ended them. With the immediate threat neutralized, Sarah found herself in command not just of human forces but of a true galactic fleet. Species that had been enemies for millennia were now working together to rebuild what the Exodus fleet had destroyed. Technologies that had once been closely guarded were now freely shared. The galaxy had been changed forever by what they had witnessed and faced together. On Earth's surface, rescue teams found Colonel Rodriguez and his civilians alive in the underground shelters. Captain Santos had not only survived the impact of her ship but had already organized joint human-alien relief operations. Using equipment salvaged from downed Exodus ships, the planet was scarred but not defeated, and the interspecies cooperation during the recovery was unprecedented. Admiral Chen, this is President Brooks. A transmission has arrived from the rebuilt White House. I am receiving offers of surrender from the remaining Exodus cells across the galaxy. It seems that news of Vale's defeat and the Alliance's victory has spread rapidly. More importantly, we are receiving applications to join our new confederation from over 60 distinct species. Sarah nodded. Although her attention was focused on the long-term implications, the battle had revealed that the galaxy was far more diverse and complex than anyone had imagined. Extinct species had survived in hidden havens. Technologies beyond current understanding existed in the hands of scattered survivors. The universe was vast, and humanity was only just beginning to explore its possibilities. The age of human dominance was arriving. Its end was replaced by something unprecedented in galactic history, a true alliance of equals, united not by conquest but by shared values and mutual respect. The Exodus fleet attempted to destroy everything the galaxy had built. Instead, they ended up forging something stronger than ever before, something that could never be broken. Months after the battle for Earth, the first Reconciliation Summit was held on what used to be the capital world of the old Galactic Council. Admiral Sarah Chan walked through the memorial gardens where monuments honored both the victims of the Exodus genocide and the soldiers who died stopping it. Each memorial was built with materials from the home planet of the species it represented, creating a mosaic of remembrance that spanned the galaxy. "Sarah," a familiar voice said behind her. She turned and saw Elena, Commander Jessica Park's sister, who had survived the war and was now leading the Exodus integration program. The former Exodus civilians are ready for their first public testimony. Sarah nodded. The integration of the Exodus survivors had been the most difficult aspect of post-war reconstruction. Many had been born into Vale's extremist ideology and knew no other way of life. But Elena Park had proven that redemption was possible. In the main assembly hall, Sarah watched as former Exodus soldiers presented themselves before representatives of the species they had tried to destroy. The first to speak was Lieutenant Marcus Webb, a young man who deserted during the final battle. "I was taught that aliens were a plague on the galaxy," he said, his voice cracking. "I was told that purity through genocide was destiny of humanity. I believed those lies until I saw Centauri doctors treating wounded humans with the same care as their own kind. It was then I understood we had become the monsters we claimed to fight." Admiral Tex, representative of the Centauri delegation, stood and approached the podium. For a moment, the room held its breath. Then the alien commander placed his six-fingered hand on Webb's shoulder. "Your courage in rejecting hatred and choosing understanding honors both species," Tex said through the universal translator. "The people sit down and forgive you and welcome you as brothers in the new galaxy we are building together." Similar scenes were repeated throughout the summit as former enemies embraced the possibility of friendship. 1 year after the war, Sarah stood in her new office aboard the Deep Space Exploration Station Aurora. The facility orbited midway between human space and that of the old Council, serving as headquarters for the newly formed Galactic Confederation of Free Worlds. "Admiral, we have received the final integration reports," announced her aide, Lieutenant Commander Torres, who had asked to continue under her command. "The refugee settlement programs have exceeded all projections. More than 40 lost civilizations have been re-established in Confederation territory." Sarah reviewed the data on her holographic screen. The Trinidad had rebuilt their bio-native manufacturing facilities using human industrial technology. Galaxians were teaching quantum mathematics to students of 12 different species. Agricultural worlds from the old Exodus were now producing food for the entire Confederation through cooperative farming techniques and deep space missions. Captain Santos reports success in the void sectors. Her fleet has located 17 more survivor communities that the Exodus fleet missed. They are all requesting admission to the Confederation. Sarah smiled. Every week brought news of another lost civilization emerging from hiding, ready to rejoin galactic society. The galaxy was larger and more diverse than 1900 what anyone had imagined, but her attention was caught by a personal message on her private channel. A video call from her daughter Emma, now 8 years old, who attended the integrated school in New Geneva. Mommy's face appeared on the screen, surrounded by a group of children from 6 different species. "Look what SEC taught me." She held up a crystalline sculpture that seemed to glow with inner light. A traditional Borak art form. Behind Emma, Sarah could see her daughter's best friend, a Dentari girl named Kira, and a human boy working together on what appeared to be a science project with levitating spheres. Clearly a mix of human and alien physics. "It's beautiful, darling. You're learning so much. Did you know that Krillians can see in 17 different color spectrums and that Borak communicate by changing their skin colors? And that humans are very good at making friends with everyone?" Sarah felt tears welling up in her eyes. This is what they had fought for, not for human dominance or alien submission, but for a future where children of different species would see diversity as wonderful, not a threat. 3 years after the battle for Earth, Sarah attended the opening of the Galactic Museum of Reconciliation on the rebuilt world of New Earth. The ceremony was broadcast to over 200 star systems and was attended by representatives from all species members of the Confederation. President Brooks, now in her second term leading the unified government of Millen of Centum, Earth, spoke to the enormous crowd. "Today, we gather to celebrate the The exhibits in this museum tell the story of how our greatest failures became our greatest lessons. Sarah walked through the museum's halls, each dedicated to a different aspect of galactic history. The Hall of Lost Worlds commemorated civilizations destroyed by various conflicts throughout time. The Gallery of Heroes honored individuals from all species who had sacrificed themselves for peace. The Chamber of Future Hopes showcased collaborative projects that would have been impossible without multi-species cooperation. But the most powerful exhibit was the Theater of Reconciliation, where former enemies of Nino Decim from across the galaxy told their stories of how they learned to trust one another. Admiral Tex sat next to former Exodus Commander Webb as they discussed their work together on the Deep Space Defense Initiative. Borak artists collaborated, with human engineers in sculptures chronicling the evolution of their species from enemies to partners. "Admiral Chen," a voice said behind her. She turned and saw Dr. Elena Vasquez, the Confederacy's chief science officer, a position that rotated between species every 2 years. "The Andromeda Contact Committee has made a decision." Sarah followed Elena to a secure briefing room where the galaxy's top scientific and military minds had gathered. The holographic screen displayed detailed sensor readings from the neighboring galaxy. "The signals are definitely artificial," Elena explained. "Multiple highly advanced civilizations, but this is the worrying thing. We're also detecting weapon signatures beyond anything we've ever seen." "Another potential threat?" asked Admiral Santos, now in command of the Confederacy's exploration fleets, "or an opportunity?" Sarah replied, "If there are advanced civilizations in Andromeda, they may have already faced their own versions of extremist movements. They could teach us how to prevent them." Future conflicts. The ensuing debate exemplified everything the Confederacy had learned. Military leaders urged caution. Scientists wanted to establish contact immediately. Diplomats proposed a gradual approach. Former members of the Exodus offered insights into how isolation could breed hostility. Specifadas shared their wisdom on first contact. Finally, Chancellor Tex, who was rotating as leader of the Confederacy, called a vote in favor of the gradual contact protocol. The vote was unanimous. Unlike the old Council or the extremist Exodus fleet, the Confederacy made decisions by consensus and mutual respect. 5 years after the war, Sarah was aboard the exploration vessel New Horizon, preparing for the most ambitious mission in galactic history. The ship itself was a marvel of cooperative engineering, human-powered engines, Inari shields, Borak sensors, Krillian navigation systems, and technologies from dozens of species operating in perfect harmony. Her crew reflected that same diversity. Human officers worked alongside alien counterparts. Their children played together in the ship's integrated family modules. Former Exodus soldiers served alongside descendants of species they once sought to destroy. The barriers between us and them had dissolved into a simple "we." "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from Earth," your communications officer reported. A young Borak woman named Sarah, whose shifting skin indicated excitement. "President Martinez wishes to speak with you." Emma Martinez, the childhood friend of Sarah's daughter, was now the youngest president ever elected to the Confederacy. That girl who had played with alien children had grown up to lead a truly galactic civilization. "Sarah, the Confederation Council has approved the mission to Andromeda," Emma said, appearing on the holographic screen. "But most importantly, we've received a message from our monitoring stations in deep space. Another group of survivors has been found, this time from a species we thought was completely extinct." "What do the architects suspect? Those who built the great ring-shaped structures we find in the outer spiral." "Apparently, a small group survived on a hidden colony ship for over 500 years. They are requesting to meet with representatives of the Confederation." Sarah felt the now familiar tingle of excitement at a new discovery. Even after all these years, the galaxy continued to reveal wonders and opportunities to build bridges between civilizations. Admiral called his navigation officer. "We are ready to go." Sarah looked up at the stars in front of them. Somewhere in that vast darkness, ITY awaited new civilizations. Some might be friendly, others hostile. Some would deal with their own versions of extremism or refugee crises. But whatever they encountered, the Confederation would face it united. They had learned the most important lesson in galactic history. Strength came not from conquest or purity, but from the courage to extend trust, offer aid, and build something greater than any one species could achieve alone. "Let's take off," Sarah ordered. "Let's make new friends." When New Horizon jumped into hyperspace, its wake was followed by a fleet of ships representing every member of the Confederation. Behind them, in over 200 star systems, children from 100 different species played together in parks where monuments honored the courage of choosing cooperation over conquest. The galaxy was finally at peace, but more importantly, it was ready for the challenges and wonders that awaited among the infinite stars. The age of galactic unity had truly begun, and the universe itself was your next frontier.